Dad's time on the mountain started from 1926 to 1966. Davidson and Dad started in the mountain in 1926. The Forest Service opened up trails into the mountains to give an opportunity to graze animals up there. They put mileposts at every mile way up the mountain. In 1965, the television station joined Peter Cordonier and his son Armand to the mountains. We're just entering the mountains at this time. That's showing the green slide, the first camp on the mountain. At this time we're at Windy Camp, looking up towards the lookout. There's Armand going to the lookout. The lookout was a forestry lookout that was in service before my time. There was a trail and a wire for the program from the bottom of the mountain to the lookout. Now we're looking out towards Grizzly Mountain. You gotta remember this was before the fire. The fire was 2 years later. At first camp there, that right the spring, the water came right out of the ground. Couldn't get any clear water than we had there. Here we have a family picnic up on the mountain. The mountain is a multi-use, of course, allowed visitors, campers. The main purpose of our trip with the mountain was to doctor on any sore feet or anything that we had to deal with. When we went to the mountains, the sheep would be spread out over, probably a mile. We had dogs that would be a herding dog. It would make a wide circle around the outside of the sheep, gradually turning them inwards. Each circle brought them tighter. That way it didn't trample any of the grass in the mountain. Once the dogs held the sheep in tight enough, that allowed Dad and myself to catch with a sheep hook the sheep needed dealing with and deal with them. Dad would be able to name off all the grasses on the mountains, but I can't, but he did a good job of it. Now we've come to what we use for a salt trough for the sheep. We brought up 3/4 ground salt to sheep. I think we used 2 tons a year. In the beginning, when they started up the mountain, everything was taken up by pack trains, and the herder, we had a herder that tended the sheep and a packer that tended the camp, and whenever needed, down to the valley and bring up the fresh supplies and some more salt for the sheep. Those salt troughs were hewn out of a log or dead tree, and That way it kept the salt up off the ground that didn't dissolve. Here we've got a picture of old Basil Saul at the camp. We had the camp there. They built a stove out of an old bale chamber that we dug a hole and set it on top of the hole, and would hold a good supply of wood underneath there. Keep the fire going all night and dry the clothes and whatever else, the cooking, of course. This time we're at what we call the Pollywog Pond. There was a little pond across the mountain, just past the mine, between the mine and Beauty Springs. We always checked that pond when we went by. If there was any bear around there, they seemed to wander through that pond, maybe catching pollywogs or so on, but it let us know what there was for predators on the mountain. And those days we had to, in the fall of the year before, or somewhere along the line, we put rings around the tree to kill a tree so that we had a supply of firewood for the following year, dead wood, of course. There we had a situation where there were sheep that went over, had permit down to Grizzly Mountain, and on a certain date their permit allowed them to come back onto what we call Lightning Camp, the east end of Crowfoot Mountain, for a period of time before they left the mountain. The herder, for some reason, decided to move over onto the other mountain a little bit sooner than he was supposed to, but it turned out the lightning struck, and if I remember right, killed 75 head of sheep. The lightning, it was kind of interesting the way the lightning traveled through the ground, making a kind of a channel there, passing through the sheep that were bedded down, leaving them dead, of course. We were interested to find through the years that no predators ever bothered those sheep that were killed with lightning for whatever reason. But anyway, it was quite an experience for old Tom MacDonald that was herding for the people at the time. He was taking some salt down to a place to put down for when the lightning hit, and it knocked him to the ground. And the pots that were on his stove and the tent were out on the ground. The dogs had disappeared over the end of the mountain by the time he came up. We, as one of our pups there, just on the mountain, we raised our own dogs for the most part. Sometimes the herder come on with his own dogs, but for the most part we had always two herding dogs that would circle the band and bring them into a tight spot. And we had always two dogs that would follow along when we were on the trail driving the sheep. The ones on the trail dog, he would just circle from one end the bunch on the trail to the other, back and forth to keep moving. It was interesting. At this time we had the sheep gathered into a tight bunch to work on them. You can see the dogs acted as a corral by holding the sheep in solid enough so we could get in and catch them and work on them. And Dad, of course, did the doctoring and I did the catching of the sheep.